Good morning to you listening on demand because you're the only people that can hear me so far. So it's Saturday baseball. We're all in. Oh, look at it. It's already coming through the chat room. I don't know what to do with myself. I said I'd start early today. So let me just tell the chat room we are good on sound. And today is the day that we discuss mid to late round pitchers. Now, you can find our podcast here 7 days a week at 9 a.m. Eastern, 7 days a week. 5 of those days is Lenny, and one of the days, Saturday baseball, is me, and then, of course, Lady and the Legend on Sunday. We have a great chat room with lots of fun baseball-minded people, and it's just nice to escape over there and check it out. So here's Saturday Fantasy Baseball. Now, today is dedicated to Malpal. We have been talking about doing a podcast about pitching because a couple years ago, Malpal came up with a formula that we've been looking at and studying for the last few years, and it basically involves a couple stats. You're going to look at the strikeout percentage and the ground ball percentage for these pitchers, and if those two percentages add up to 70%, then you have a potential breakout guy on your hands. Now, of course, you do have to pay attention to a lot of different factors. I mean, you can't, just because a guy is inducing a lot of ground balls, what if he's walking all kinds of batters? That's a problem, and that is not showing up in this formula. So we started looking at also the home runs allowed. These two things, the walks and the home runs, they do need to be taken into consideration. But I could tell you, as a matter of fact, that just last year, 14 out of the top 28 ranked pitchers to go off the board in fantasy were busts, complete busts. Now, I'm not talking about, what we're doing today is mid to late round pitching targets. Now, these are potential breakouts, but let me rephrase this. This is a list of, most of these guys, the starting pitchers are a list of what Malpal recommended to me to talk about. We were going to talk about them together, but life happens and things get in the way. So basically, as a whole, the starting pitchers that I'm about to discuss tend to put up a good ground ball rate and have strikeout potential. So that's what we're doing today, and that's where these guys come from. It is not just all the late round targets, but these are the formula guys that Malpal brought up to me, and that's who we're talking about today. Now, we also have a section, the second half of the show is going to be on closers, mid to late round closers, so you'll want to stay tuned. And also, one more thing before we get started on our mid to late round targets. If you want to be in our chat room leagues, we do these every year. We are doing best ball this year, and it's just 40 rounds of draft fun, okay? Slow draft, so you don't have to worry about making time in your schedule. You get 4 hours per pick. We might change that to 2 hours about halfway through the draft, depending on how quickly we get these things done. But it is 40 rounds. We're getting started this next week. All you need to do, if you didn't get an invite yet, is to send your interest to lennymelnick@gmail.com with your Fantrax email that you use, and so we can get you in our leagues. It's going to be a lot of fun this year with the best balls, and it's going to be extra fun for me because I don't have to babysit anybody. I don't have to make any moves, and it's the lazy person's fantasy baseballs for that. So here we go. Let's talk about Christopher Sanchez, 27-year-old Philadelphia Phillies. Last year, finished the season with a 3.44 ERA, a 1.05 whip, and 96 strikeouts. Now, he actually missed the second half of spring training because he had soreness in his left tricep, and he actually went on the injured list. He came off the injured list in late April, and he only made one start. It was in a doubleheader, and then he was optioned to AAA. He did not pitch good at AAA, but the Phillies were in an emergency jam, and they needed him, so they called him back up. He went on to start 17 more games and one relief appearance. His 3.44 ERA was absolutely supported by his 57% ground ball rate. 57. Now that's not surprising that it came up on Malpal's radar. He also strikes out 24.2% of batters, which matched his minor league track record. They say he's not assured of a spot in the rotation because, in Philadelphia, they have Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Ranger Suarez, Taijuan Walker, and then you have about 4 different starting pitchers vying for the 5th rotation spot, and Christopher Sanchez is one of them. His ADP is 269. I absolutely think it's a good idea to keep your eye out for Christopher Sanchez at ADP 269. Also, somebody didn't get an invite. Leonard, if you see somebody in the chat room not getting an invite, please write down the information. Okay, thank you very much.
But I did tell them to check the spam folder.
Right, well, just write down the people that are having trouble, and we'll make sure it's taken care of. The next guy on Malpal's list is Griffin Canning. Griffin Canning, look, Malpal brings this guy up a lot. Now, you're going to hear several Angels starting pitchers today in this list. And is King Turd here? Because I will tell King Turd that, of course, I had to put Reed Detmers back on the list after he said he's seeing good things from Reed Detmers again. I know. He's so tempting, right? By the way, Reed Detmers comes from King Turd, not Malpal, because I don't think that Malpal's too high on Reed Detmers. Anyway, he loves Griffin Canning, ADP 317. Now, he didn't have a great start to the season last year. He started on the injured list. He had a groin injury. He only needed the minimum stay. And then he went on to toss a career-high 127 innings. He started 22 of 24 of his outings, and he did end up back on the injured list in late July with a calf injury, but he only missed 3 weeks. So, his 4.32 ERA was okay, right? But actually, his xFIP and his Sierra were both much better. 3.82 and 3.80 respectively on those. Okay, he strikes out his 19.2% strikeout minus walks percent. It ranked 22nd among pitchers with at least 120 innings thrown. He has a four-seamer that gained 1 mile per hour of velocity and definite strikeout upside. His biggest problem is his home runs, right? But this is the Angels rotation. It's number 1 guy on the rotation is Reed Detmers, okay? Number 2 is Griffin Canning. Number 3 is Chase Silseth, who is also on this list of mid to late round pitchers to target. So you look at Griffin Canning and his strikeout percentage, 25.9% with a 42.7% ground ball rate. This guy is a potential breakout. And by the way, when I think a lot of fantasy managers, they go into draft and they go, I can't take the 4 ERA. I get that. I'm always trying to find guys with something less than a 4 ERA. But if you look at the league average ERA nowadays, it's not what it used to be. I think it's like 4.12 or something very close to that. So a 4 ERA isn't going to kill you, especially if they strike out a lot of batters. So, you're talking about 317 ADP, not even being drafted in a lot of leagues. So keep your eye out for Griffin Canning. Another guy on the list, Nick Lodolo, ADP 224. Had a horrible season last year. Expectations were way higher than what you got. He only made 7 starts before he went down with a stress reaction in his left tibia. He's a lefty, and he looked like he was on the verge of returning in August, but then he had a second stress reaction in the same tibia. Okay, so he stayed off. He was down across the board. He allowed 10 home runs in 34 innings. Okay, that's a 27% home run to fly ball ratio. He admitted last spring that he was having trouble adjusting to the pitch clock. We don't know how much that played a factor, but you do realize that in 2019, he was the 7th overall pick, okay? So he had a lot of expectations, a very highly touted prospect. His ADP is 224 this year. He does strike out. He still strikes out batters, so we'll see if he continues to grow. But he was on the list, so I assume he is getting it done with the strikeouts and the ground balls, right? That's what we're looking for in a lot of this. The next guy on the list, good morning to King Hap. Good morning to Eddie, Dirty Eck, Data Premier, Chris, nice to see you. Every Chris, nice to see all the Chris's. Anthony D.B. Miller, great to see you. George, love it. Mr. Happy, King Hap. Leonard Donaldson, Laura, my friend Laura's here. Lenny, Merrill. I can't see any lower than that, Leonard.
Post 1958.
Post 1958.
Nice to see you.
Everybody, it's great to see you. It's a wonderful chat room today. Getting it done.
Yeah. So you got Rotorius, Timothy.
Rotorius.
Here.
Taco. Where's Sunny D? I hope you're enjoying the beautiful state of Florida right now with the spring training and everybody.
31 in the chat room.
31. Very good. All right. Good to see Taco, Tommy Johnson, Timothy, my hooker, all of you people. If you want to get in our chat room leagues, we're getting started drafting next week.
White Sox Al.
White Sox Al, great to see you.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Eddie, we'll talk about the AL only leagues, please. Liddy doesn't know anything about those. We'll talk personally about it. There's nothing for you to do in there yet. You don't have a team yet. I'm going to send you a list of keepers to choose from once everybody selects their keepers. Eddie, we'll talk later. Edward Cabrera, 25-year-old starting pitcher for the Marlins. Missed over a month with the right shoulder impingement. He was optioned shortly after his return from the injured list. He really needed to work on his command. He returned from the minors. He went 2-1 with the 2.38 ERA, a 1.37 whip, and 25 strikeouts to 14 walks in his final 5 appearances. Only one home run allowed in 22 2/3 innings. So when this guy is on, he is on. He has 3 primary pitches, a changeup, a four-seamer, and a curveball. He's got a 14% career walk rate, but he's got a 26.2% strikeout rate, which is why Malpal put him on the list, guaranteed here. He also induces 54.3% ground balls. Now, now that was last year, but he's constantly doing well with inducing ground balls. So between his strikeout percentage and his ground ball percentage, he is absolutely poised for a huge breakout. I love this guy at 250 ADP. No doubt about it. He's going to get in the rotation for the Marlins. And, I used to think that Miami was a real great place for pitchers, but now I'm reading that it's actually pitcher neutral. So this is probably my best target on this list. Edward Cabrera, 25-year-old Miami Marlins starting pitcher, 250 ADP. The next guy on the list, we have Chase Silseth. We told you there was going to be more than one Angels pitcher on the list today. 23-year-old Chase, okay? Finished last season 4-1 with a 3.96 ERA and 56 strikeouts. He did have a great highlight last year. It included a 12 strikeout start against the Mariners in August, and then he turned around and struck out 10 Yankees in late July in one of his outings. But he's blown up a couple times too with 4 or more earned runs against both the Orioles and the Rays. Okay? Anyway, between Salt Lake and Anaheim last year, he worked 98 innings with 104 strikeouts, 46 walks, and 10 homers, despite the fact that he induces a ton of ground balls. I told you the theme of the day is ground balls and strikeout percentage. Well, with this guy, Silseth, you got a 48.9% ground ball rate along with a 25.3% strikeout rate. Fastball 95 miles an hour. This guy is not even being drafted. And by the way, none of these guys are perfect. They're not, but we're looking for breakouts. We're looking for potential breakouts. This guy is 23 years old, and he's also got a slider and a splitter, which these two pitches, generated whiffs 33% of the time. His fastball is average at best, but he does have those two other pitches that are awesome for strikeouts for sure. His ADP is not even being drafted in a lot of leagues, 373. Let's go with some Chase Silseth here. Now, of course, I have to talk about Reed Detmers, right? This guy is just a nightmare in a lot of aspects. He's a nightmare in a lot of ways, but one of the ways he's a nightmare is his home runs. He gives up more than a home run per 9 innings, but he strikes out. That's what's so exciting, and enticing about Reed Detmers. He just gets out there and he strikes out batters, gets it done. No doubt about it, So, 68% left on base percentage. I do think he got a little bit unlucky last year. So, look, 265 ADP for Detmers. I'm going to hold back on my praise for this guy, especially because, look, if he was the number 4 or 5 in the rotation, I could get with that a little bit more. But this guy has to go up against the best pitchers in baseball, being the number 1 pitcher, the number 1 starting pitcher. And I have to say, out of the 3 Angels pitchers that we're talking about today, Reed Detmers would be last on my list. I would take Silseth. I would take Griffin Canning above this guy because it comes down to the fact that he's the number 1 and he's going to have to face a lot of other number 1s, which is not going to bode well for him. Plus, that's what it is. All right. We have DL Hall, 25-year-old relief pitcher for the Brewers. However, in the depth chart, he looks to be their number 4 starters for the Brewers. He's sitting behind Freddie Peralta, Wade Miley. Good grief with this Milwaukee Brewers depth chart for pitching. They have nobody. Aaron Ashby's on there, but he's not even. It says he's out. I have to admit, I haven't done a lot of looking at Aaron Ashby, but I expected a lot more out of Ashby than I got, speaking of. But let's talk about DL Hall. He's not being drafted in most leagues. ADP is 429. He's a lefty. Now, his fastball down at Norfolk, which is AAA, was 93.5 miles an hour. That was lower than what we saw the years before, and it might have had something to do with the fact that he had lower back discomfort and it really lingered from the off season into spring training. Anyways, the Orioles eventually sent him to Florida for strength training, and then once he built up his arm strength, he worked out of the AAA bullpen before he was summoned to the majors in late August. But from August on, he compiled a 2.76 ERA, a 104 whip, 16 strikeouts and 4 walks over 16 and a third innings out of Baltimore's bullpen. So we really don't know for sure much about this guy. His walks are a little bit sketchy, right? But he does strike out a good amount of batters and clearly induces a lot of ground balls, or he wouldn't be on this list. I do absolutely think he's going to get a chance in the rotation. How's it going in the chat room?
Chat room's great. Chat room is 34 people.
Lenny's so happy about the chat room. Let me have a sip of coffee.
Yeah, 34 people. Unbelievable.
All right.
Great stuff.
Well, it's baseball season, that's for sure. Here's another guy to have a look at who's not being drafted at all. Keaton Winn, Keaton Winn. He made his big league debut last year at 25, 35 strikeouts, 8 walks in 5 starts and 4 relief appearances. That was 42 and a third innings. But when they made contact, they hit the ball super hard, okay? He had a 4.68 ERA and a 1.04 whip. So that really does match what he did in the minors between low, high, and double A in 2022. They aren't guaranteeing this guy a rotation spot, but he is listed as their 4th starter, okay? And he's due back March 1st. We'll see what happens there. The Giants, they say they're not guaranteeing him a rotation spot. But another thing about the Giants is that they do a great job with pitchers. You know, we saw Kevin Gausman go to the Giants and resurrect his career, and a couple other pitchers over the last few years that I can't think of at the moment, but I'm telling you, keep an eye on Keaton Winn, especially this spring. I'd be watching this guy Keaton Winn for the Giants to see how he's doing, where they put him in, and what's going on there. But according to his strikeouts and ground ball rate, he could be a decent breakout for the Giants. And that is a pitcher's park, and we know that, right? Now let's talk about some closers. We're doing closers now, and then we'll wrap this baby up. King Turd said that Reed Detmers is close to being Luzardo. Wow, that's high hopes you got over there. Oh, look at this. The Angels' recently hired pitching coach has big plans for Reed Detmers, okay? That's according to a Sports Illustrated. Thanks for the link. Yeah, Keaton Winn. I mean, it's interesting. I know he doesn't have great stats, but he sure does strike out a ton of batters, and we could really maybe see that as he gets older. He's only 26. Let's talk about some mid to late round closers to target here. We got Kyle Finnegan on the list. Last year, a career high 28 saves. It was 66.7% of the Nationals' total saves last year. He posted a 7.63 ERA and a 1.89 whip over the last month and a half season, so he did not finish the season well at all. But he relied heavily on his upper 90s fastball. He throws that 70% of the time, but he did throw more split fingers, 24.8%, because it was his most successful pitch. He's striking out over 35% of batters on that split finger. Okay, so he's throwing it more often. Now, he did produce a career worst strikeout rate, which was 21.7%. And he did permit 11 home runs, okay? That's a 17.7% home run to fly ball ratio, but his ADP is 263, and I am not telling you to get this guy as your number one closer, but hey, you can get this guy late. My only point of advice for this is that if you're going to do Kyle Finnegan, you need to back him up with Hunter Harvey, because Hunter Harvey could also get some opportunity, and he is going ADP 324. So look, if it's round 25 of the draft and you decide that you're going to get Finnegan, just go ahead and put Hunter Harvey on the list for your last draft pick, because it's going to be one of these two guys in Washington. This guy, Hunter Harvey throws his fastball 98.3 miles an hour. He also implemented a slider last year. 14% of the time, it was extremely effective against right-handed batters. Their batting average against his slider last year was .087. which is way below the Mendoza line, okay, if you're keeping track at home. Now, that's all I got to say about Kyle Finnegan. If you're doing Finnegan, grab Hunter Harvey. Let's move on to the next guy who I think I might be targeting in a lot of leagues this year. I do not love grabbing a closer early. I do not love it and I do not love it in either snake drafts, and I do not love it in auction drafts. I definitely wait on closers, but it is important to make sure that you get a decent closer. So you got to get yourself one, right? That doesn't mean you have to draft Josh Hader. Anyway, you could draft Jose Alvarado, 238 ADP for the Phillies, 28 years old, and I remember being very wrong about this guy going into last season. I like him now. He finished the season 0-2 with a 1.74 ERA and a 1.16 WHIP last year. He didn't even walk one batter over his first 14 and a third innings, and he struck out 24 batters. So, look, he got 5 of his 10 saves last year in the first month of the season. He had left elbow inflammation that required a trip to the injured list, but he missed just over a month of action. Last year, though, when he did come back, he walked 9 batters over his next 11 innings, okay, and his whip was 1.80. He also went back to the injured list after that with the same injury. This time he missed a month and a half, so he missed a lot of time. He continues to miss a lot of time. But I'm telling you, look at the depth chart for this bullpen here. This is another one where if you're going to grab Mr. Alvarado at 238 ADP, you're going to want to back him up with Orion Kerkering. He's a 22-year-old up-and-comer for the Phillies, but these are the two getting the saves in Philadelphia, okay? Let's talk about Orion Kerkering a little bit. He was a 5th-round pick in 2022. He opened last season in the minors, okay, at single A. And he ended 2023 pitching high-leverage innings for the Phillies in the National League Championship Series. So he is up, right? His ERA was 1.51 with a .89 whip and 79 strikeouts and 12 walks over 53 and 2/3 innings. He advanced through 4 levels last year, but he's up. He's in the Phillies. So look, he's got an 86-mile-an-hour sweeping slider that has 18.6 inches of horizontal break, okay? And he throws that pitch 85% of the time. It's unbelievable. This guy, you got to take a look at him, dude, throwing that unbelievable pitch. They say it's one of the most unique pitches in the game. So, that's what it is. It's 80.6 miles per hour with 17 plus inches of horizontal break. Also, his sinker approached triple digits, topping out at 98.8 miles per hour during the playoffs. He has the stuff to be a future closer, but he's going to share the duties. His ADP is 465. If you go ahead and take a shot on Alvarado for your closer, just grab Kerkering. We're talking about some serious handcuffing here going on. James McArthur, the Kansas City Royals closer. Is he, though? We don't know. If you look at RotoWire, the depth charts don't show James McArthur as the closer. But in the same sense, the RotoWire projections have him for more saves than Will Smith and John Schreiber, who are sitting both on top of him in the depth chart. So that's an interesting find there. RotoWire projects him for 22 saves coming up this year, but he's listed as the 3rd closer, which is why his ADP is 296. Now, James McArthur, 27 years old. All right, Kansas City Royals. He was designated for assignment by the Phillies. This guy is 6 feet 7 inches tall. All right, he made his major league debut last year in June. He allowed 7 earned runs over 1 inning of work, so he was sent back and forth between the majors and the minors multiple times, but he got his final recall in early September, and he closed out, they say he looked like a completely different pitcher. He closed out the season throwing more curveballs and fewer sinkers, which resulted in a 12-game scoreless streak. 16 and a third scoreless innings to end the season with 19 strikeouts and no walks, okay? He did get some run as the Royals closer. He got 4 saves over the final 2 weeks of the season, and that absolutely improves. But I think it's a great find here. This is how, you got to find these little gems hiding. RotoWire does not have him listed as the closer. As I mentioned, it has him listed as the number 3 closer. But if you look at the projections for the other 2 guys that are projected to get the closer job, neither of them have as many projected saves as this MacArthur. Now, the problem with this guy is we just have no clue who this guy is. As I mentioned, he pitched excellent for the final month of the season, which gives me hope that maybe he figured something out, right? But he ended the season overall with a 4.63 ERA, which was way worse than his .94 whip. So, look, he's projected 22 saves. He's not even being drafted in a lot of leagues, and he could be a gem in disguise. Now, if you want to do some handcuffing here, you could just add Will Smith. He's projected for 19 saves, and his ADP is 502. So if you do get stuck with James MacArthur, then go ahead and grab Will Smith as your final pick. Okay, he earned 22 saves for the Rangers last season, and he has 113 for his career. He actually really struggled over the final 2 months of the season, whereas this James MacArthur finished the season. Great momentum going on here. So, you want to take a chance on James MacArthur? Grab Will Smith, too, as your potential handcuff here. Thank you, Laura. Wonderful to see you, and I hope Mary is doing excellent today. Kenley Jansen, 36-year-old reliever for the Red Sox. Poor Kenley Jansen, right? I don't have the depth charts in front of me, but he's got to be the closer. Why do I say poor Kenley Jansen? Well, he's 36 years old, but that's the deal. He's the closer. His ADP is way too high for what he is still. Anyway, he got 29 saves last year, but I try to avoid these closers with the ERA above 3. His ERA was 3.63 last year, and Father Time is catching up with Kenley Jansen. Now, do I think he's still going to get another 29 saves? Absolutely, because the Red Sox have nobody else, okay? He did record his 400th career save last May. He also went to his 4th All-Star game. He finished with 29 saves, and that was enough to overtake Kimbrel for the top spot on the active saves leaderboard. Now, he only made 51 appearances last year, which was his lowest mark since 2015. He had various injuries, back, knee, hamstring, okay? He still did close out 67 and 0.4% of Boston's total saves last year. We were worried that he might not adjust to the pitch clock since he was dead last in pitch tempo with the bases empty. But he only had 3 pitch clock violations all year, and those were all in the same game. And by the way, this 35-year-old guy, he actually added velocity, okay? He averaged 94.3 miles per hour on his trademark cutter. All right, that he throws 78% of the time. Anyway, as I mentioned earlier, Father Time, we would be lucky to get 29 saves out of this guy again. But at ADP 141, I would, you know what? I am recommending that people get a closer before that mark happens. You do not want to end up at pick 141 with no closer. These guys I'm telling you about are for backup closer spots. These are for people that you put in to fill out your roster, not to that as your main guy. And the more teams in the league, the more important it is to get a good closer, a decent closer. These guys that I'm talking about right now are not the number one closers in fantasy, but they absolutely will do fine for you as your second or even third closer. But as I mentioned before, the more teams in the league, the more important it is to have a bona fide closer. Okay? Jose Leclerc, your favorite turd, right? Turd, I'm so glad you come today, because today I have a lot of players on here that make me think of the Turd. Now, Jose Leclerc, who the Turd says is absolutely going to be the closer for the Texas Rangers. What a great target for you people. Jose Leclerc, okay? Even if his ERA isn't as good as it was last year, it's still under 3. His whip is good. The guy is going to get the saves. He had 4 saves last year, which is keeping his ADP low. 205 is his current ADP, okay? Now, his biggest problem is his walks, okay? So, during high leverage situations, he walked too many. He also, so he got demoted from high leverage to low leverage spots, and then he got hurt. He had an ankle sprain where he missed 2 weeks. But after that, he was much better. After that trip to the IL, Jose Leclerc posted a 2.16 ERA, a .99 whip, 42 strikeouts, and 13 walks over the final 3 months of the season. Hello, he finished the season strong. He worked his way back up to the high leverage situations. He got 4 saves, 8 holds, and good ratios. He also tacked on another 4 saves across 13 playoff appearances, and that gives him momentum heading into this season. You know how much I love momentum, okay? He is going to continue to ride the success of his slider. The batting average against that slider is 119 with 49.6% whiff rate. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just trying to tell you. Okay, I'm emphasizing some serious important business here for 205 ADP. Jose Leclerc is the closer. That's according to Turd. And I'll tell you what. They signed David Robertson, right? So let me tell you the worst case scenario. You get Leclerc at 205, and then you back him up with your last pick, because sometimes you got to handcuff these guys. They did sign David Robertson, but David Robertson is 38 years old now. He is absolutely there, I think, just in case Leclerc screws it all up. 435 ADP, okay, for this 38-year-old David Robertson. All right, look, Texas Rangers is a great team to target for these guys, for late draft picks, you know. We're looking for upside here, and David Robertson, I'll give him the credit that credit is due. 3.03 ERA, a 119 whip, 78 strikeouts, and 18 saves last year, but that was for the Mets, okay, because Edwin Diaz was out. So he was very good with New York. He had a 2.05 ERA and a 1 whip over 44 innings with 14 saves, 7 holds, 4 wins. All right, that was before. Now he's with the Rangers. I'll tell you what, Daniel Ferrara, great to see you. Daniel, check your email for a Fantrax invite. You're one of the few that hasn't accepted their invite. So I'm not going to take it as a decline. I'm going to take it as you didn't see it yet. Okay, great to see you, Anthony D.B. Miller, guest Boston Paul. He's talking about Robertson will go earlier. Well, his ADP is 435, and that means he's not being drafted in a lot of leagues. I know his name alone could get him attention in certain drafts. You know, it all depends on who you're drafting against, where these guys go. The ADP doesn't necessarily mean what, actually not necessarily, it doesn't at all mean what they're actually worth. It means what the market is willing to pay for these guys. So I'm just telling you, you know, you're going to get in situations where you might need to handcuff some closers at the end. Okay, the next guy on the list with the 138 ADP is Tanner Scott. 29-year-old reliever for the Marlins. ADP 138. He had a personal best 33.9% strikeout and 17.8% swinging strike percentage. His 26.1 strikeout minus walk ratio was the 5th highest among qualified reliever, even though he had No, that's not true. I'm reading this wrong. He had double-digit saves for the second straight year. We're talking about Tanner Scott. Finished the season 9-5 with a 2.31 ERA, a .99 WHIP, 12 saves, and 104 strikeouts. He is projected for 26 saves this year. He's got improved control. He cut his walk rate in half, okay? Also produced a career-best .99 WHIP. He went from having a bottom 5 WHIP among relievers in 2022 to 14th in the category. So his strikeout upside was already great, but he did improve significantly with his strikeout percentage. This is ADP 138. He's projected for 26 saves for the Miami Marlins. All right. Another guy on the list who doesn't even have an ADP, but I went and I found his ADP at NFBC because RotoWire doesn't even have an ADP for Yuki Matsui, who is the 28-year-old reliever for the Padres, potentially their closer this year. NFBC says he's being drafted 375 overall, and I would say this guy has a significant chance of being the closer for the Padres. He's a lefty. He signed a 5-year, $28 million contract in December, so that in itself gives me the idea that he potentially will close out games and get saved. Let's see what he did. He's 5'8". He's got his four-seamer that sits at 92 to 94 miles an hour, but it's got a lot of movement, and it pairs perfectly with this devastating splitter, which led to a 2.40 ERA and 236 saves across his 10-year career in Japan. Over the last 3 years, he has produced ERAs of .63, 1.95, and 1.57, also striking out 36.4% of the time. Okay? That's great. 36.4% strikeout rate, that's just unheard of. Anyway, he hasn't always shown great control, okay? In his career, he has a 10.9% walk rate, but he did drop that to 5.9% last season, so we will see how Matsui does coming over from Japan, and I would definitely keep an eye on him this spring, but I just can't see anybody else for the Padres to use as their number one closer. I think the fact that they paid him so much money, he's going to get every opportunity to get the saves in San Diego, and look, man, NFBC is telling me his ADP is 375. So jump on Yuki Matsui because we love an affordable closer. All right. All right, hold on one sec. Mitchell Hartson says Matsui looked impressive in his first spring appearance. Can you believe this guy is going so late in drafts? I mean, I get the look. It makes no sense to me because I would say to myself, well, the reason that he's going so late in drafts is because nobody really knows him or has seen him yet. But look at Yamamoto. These people are going crazy on Yamamoto, and nobody's ever seen him pitch here either. So if you're going to give all this love to these guys, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Everybody loves Yamamoto. I get, I had a conversation with Turd today about Yamamoto, and maybe I'm just one of those more just conservative people where I just do not trust. I keep my expectations low for these people that have never pitched in Major League Baseball. The excitement is always so high, and the expectation is always so high. But you got this guy Matsui, nobody's even paying attention to him, okay? So let's go. You want to give some Japanese guys some love? Go ahead and give it to Matsui. Okay, my next guy on the list. Well, I was going to talk about first I was going to talk about Andres Munoz. He's the new reliever closer for Seattle. And also, Pete Fairbanks. These guys are going around ADP 110, 115. I don't know. Munoz is exciting. He's projected for 18 saves, a 2.74 ERA, and a 1.09 whip. I'd probably take him over Fairbanks. But why not just wait another round and get Clay Holmes, who's going ADP 130? Because he's projected 25 saves next year with an ERA of 2.95 and a whip of 113. Go ahead and just wait till the next round. Those rounds are so important right there, about round 10. You're getting into guys that are going to make or break your fantasy team. Everybody talks about the first couple rounds of the draft. I'm telling you, the draft rounds that win leagues are between 10 and 20. When you're getting these players that you're taking a chance off based on what you know. Now, what we do know for Clay Holmes is that he's not flashy, he's not that exciting, but he did finish last season with a 2.86 ERA, a 1.17 whip, and 24 saves. He's 30 years old, so he doesn't have the exciting highlight of some kind of new, closer of the future, but Clay Holmes is the closer. They used him last year in high leverage spots. Aaron Boone clued us in before the season even started that he was going to use Holmes in high leverage situations, and that's exactly how he was deployed in the first half of the season. He was being called in the 7th and 8th innings, but 26 of his 28 outings after the All-Star break came in the 9th inning. He finished with a career-high 24 of Yankees' 44 saves, and that was only having the job for half a season. He also had 54% of the team's saves, which was an improvement over 2022. He had a career-best 27% strikeout rate to go along with his elite 2.4% barrel rate, which falls in the 99th percentile. So this guy does not allow a lot of barrels, not a lot of hard contact going on here. He also induced ground balls 66.7% of the time, which is like the best in the league. He threw fewer sinkers last year in favor of more breaking pitches, with his slider and his sweeper both generating 40+% whiff rates, okay? Here's the thing. Boone's coming back. Clay Holmes is coming back. I don't know why he's not getting more love, but he's 130 ADP. Get on it. And that's it. That's all I got for today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. We dedicate this show to Maupal for sure, and he absolutely came to the chat room. He said that he would go with Matsui for the Padres as well. He also, Suarez is another experienced closer for the Padres too, right? Didn't they sign him last year? Yeah. So he's probably going to get some of the saves also. But Matsui being signed to that spot with all that money. They did sign Robert Suarez out of Japan prior to last season. They also added a Korean guy this winter. So, look, there's going to be more than one guy getting saves in San Diego, but I love this Yuki Matsui where he's going in drafts. You just can't go wrong with a guy like this, but I'll tell you what, these mid to late round players that I'm telling you to get are game changers. We did a podcast already doing the middle infield. We did the third baseman. We did the outfielders. Now, I have at least 7 drafts starting this week, okay, and a couple of really great tournaments that I got in, so I'm looking forward to this year a lot, and I hope you guys are all with me. If you didn't get an invite to the Fantrax Best Ball Leagues, it's 40 rounds of slow draft glee, okay, and then no work. So nobody can tell me that they have too many leagues going on. Just let's go. This is a way for our chat room baseball people to get involved. If you did not get a link yet,
it's free.
And it's free, and you get to win money if you come in first. We give $50 to each winner. But we know that $50 does not buy much nowadays. It's just a gift for being a part of what we love to do every day, which is sit around and talk fantasy baseball. All right, Big Al, love it. See you tomorrow. We'll see you all tomorrow. It's Lady and the Legend, 9 a.m. Can't wait to do it.